Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us this afternoon, this evening for some of you guys. I'm here joined by my good friend John at Sasquatch 210.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us this afternoon.
John, can you hear me, brother?
Now I can hear you, man.
All right, man. Sorry about that, guys. Technical difficulties. I'm still getting used to this thing. But welcome, guys. This is Amateur Hour, and I'm joined by my friend John over at Sasquatch 210. We are starting this new show because we've made a lot of mistakes along the way, and we want to share them with you guys so you don't do the same thing. So, John, say what's up to everybody, brother.
Hey, what's up, everybody? You guys see me? How's it going, everybody? It's me, John, aka Sasquatch 210, and yeah, man, I'm really happy to be here. Me and Matt have we met through Instagram, and we've gotten to know each other and realized that we had a lot of similar interests and similar stories too, man. So we've been talking back and forth about our experiences with collecting, and realized that we had a wealth of knowledge that we wanted to share with everybody, so that you guys don't make the same mistakes that we do, hopefully, or you hopefully maybe can handle them better than we did. So that's what this show's all about, man, is trying to spread that knowledge and to warn others of the pitfalls of collecting.
Awesome, man. So let's see, can you guys see me? I think some people in the chat are saying, where's Matt at? So let's see, how about now? Can you guys see me? Am I popping up for you? Let's see if this is happening right. I think so. I think we figured it out. So let's see. All right. Yeah, there we go. All right. Well, let me say what's up really quick, John, before we go into this a little further, to everybody in the chat. Let's see who's here joining us. So we've got, first and foremost, Caleb, Comic Smurf. Thanks for being here, brother. I got issues. He got beat. He wasn't first. Comic Lover Omega, thanks for stopping by, checking us out. Marvel Joe, what's going on, brother? We got Kachoom. He says he's got us on the lounge TV. Nice, man. Let us know if we're looking suave. Sasquatch, that's my boy right there. If you guys aren't subbed up to Sasquatch, please do. This guy is awesome. We've been talking a whole bunch as we've been prepping the show, and I can't tell you how much I enjoy his company, enjoy talking with him. This is going to be really fun for us to do. So we got Gray Man. What's up, Gray Man? What time is it over there with you guys? Vinny, Bake the Snake. Awesome. Thierry 23. Big Lion Cat. Meow. Comic Book NYC, or Comic Books, as he likes to correct us. And the Boss Cow. Hey, man. Hedgehog Gaming. What is going on? This is a guy that I follow, and we followed each other for a long while on Instagram. And he's all about hedgehogging it. And like, he literally has a hedgehog. You guys need to go check him out. Pretty cute, man. Man from Beantown, what's up? Man, there's a whole bunch of you in here. Discovery Bait. Sweet. He says, Matt is coming in loud and clear. It's past 1 in the morning. Bro, thank you for being awake and watching this. All right, so let's get back to what we're trying to do here tonight. John came up with a pretty awesome name, and it's called Amateur Hour. And the reason we went with that name is because we made a lot of mistakes as we started our comic book collecting career. And we still are amateurs at this point in the game when we're looking at how long we've been doing this. So I'm going to give the floor over to John. He's going to tell you a little bit about himself, how long he's been doing the comic book collecting. Then we'll come back over to me, and I'll share a little bit of that with you guys so we can see, who we're like in the community. There's some guys like JD, Metarog that have been collecting since the 80s, since the 70s. I know guys since the 60s and 50s. That's not us. And so they probably have a lot of stories that they can share with us in the future. We'd love to have anybody on the show that wants to be a part of it and wants to share some of their stories with us to save people heartache. But for now, let me turn the time over to John, Sasquatch 210, so he can share with you guys kind of a little bit about him and when he started collecting, and we'll go from there.
All right, man. Thanks. So I don't know if it's if the camera's switching back in between us. Can you guys hear me out there?
Yeah, I see you, brother.
All right. Okay. All right. Cool. All right. So my name is John. Sasquatch 210. Some of you guys have I've known some of you guys for a while now, and I am from San Antonio, Texas. I've been collecting. Well, I first started collecting way back in the day, man. Back in 1991, when I was 11 years old. And I've told this story before. My dad took me to a comic book shop back then. He was a teacher, and he was looking for ways to get me and my brother to start reading more because he really wanted us to work on our reading skills. And he himself was a big comic book fan, and he wanted to share that with us. And I remember walking in that store, man, on that first day and picking up X-Men #1, which was the fold-out Jim Lee cover. And that changed my life forever, man. That beautiful artwork, going into a comic shop for the first time and just realizing that there were places like that existed, you know, seeing other nerds. That comic book store was really cool because back then, this was before Star Wars was like an everyday thing like it is now. So he had like this huge Star Wars action figure collection, which was really awesome to see. And so, you know, that I got bit by the bug way back then. And being that I started back in the early 90s, man, that's when speculation was at its highest. And so, you know, part of the reason why comic books became so lucrative or so interesting was this: everybody had this sense that, you know, everything that we're buying was going to be worth money someday, which wasn't necessarily the best way or the best reason to start collecting. Because I remember, you know, right around the time that Image came out, I was buying a lot of comic books that I wasn't even necessarily reading just because, you know, I was expecting them to go up in value someday. I think everybody was doing that back then. And so, you know, eventually, you know, when I got into high school, I was more interested in girls than I was in comic books. Sometimes, not all the time, but I kind of put that away, and then I didn't pick it up again until, I mean, I'd always kind of watched the movie. Like once the movie started coming out, I got back into the comic book lifestyle, I guess it is. But at that point, it started becoming mainstream. Still wasn't reading comics again, just was kind of like buying the toys and watching the movies and whatnot. And then it wasn't until fairly recently that that I picked it up again as a real hobby. And this last run, it's been about, I want to say, man, I started last summer, so it hasn't even been an entire year yet. And because it had been, you know, years before that I had collected, like it feels like I'm starting all over from scratch. Like I basically had a few books, or like a not even a full long box of books that I had that I picked up from my mom's house that had been in storage for a long time. A lot of just really bad 90s, you know, spec books that aren't worth anything. And I got into it because somebody recommended that I should read Saga, and that's what I started reading. And I think I read the trade paperback, and I saw how much the first issue was going for, and I was like, I love this book so much, I really need to find it. And I was able to find a really good deal. I matched that up with an eBay coupon, and I think that's what, like, just finding that book and hunting it and being able to attain it just kind of like gave me the bug to want to do more. And so I don't know if you guys can see, I got my Saga book up there. And after that, it was all over, man. I went from literally last summer not having any of these books to, like, you know, less than 4 months later having just like, you know, just short box after short box, like having thousands. And so I bought a lot in a short amount of time. And in that time, I learned a tremendous amount, just from dealing with all sorts of people, from reading all kinds of information, doing a lot of research, because I'm a teacher, you know, I come from an academic background. And so it's in my nature to kind of to research stuff and to read about things. And I also just, like, whenever I start a hobby, like, I'm really passionate about all the things that I do. So I jump in the deep end, man, and hope that I don't drown. And that's what happened with comic book collecting. And so here we are, not even a year later, and I've gotten a collection I think that for some people would have taken years to amass. So if there's somebody that you can learn from, it's definitely me, because I made a lot of mistakes in a very short amount of time.
Cool, man. Thank you for sharing that with us, brother. There's a couple people that are saying some cool stuff in the chat, so I want to point it out. The Bosco pointed out that his X-Men 1 Jim Lee was one of his first books also, just like you, man. So that's pretty cool.
Nice.
And then Bake the Snake is saying Image for life. So I never picked up Image, man. I I guess I got a few books, but I was just a big two, DC Marvel, man. That was me. And then, let's see. Welcome, DeFunko Pop and Comics. We also got, I think I saw Lindsay's Geeked Out Knickknacks. What's up, Lindsay? And then Kachung is saying he's got a very similar story to yours, brother. So I think there's a lot of people that love Saga as well. And is that, what grade is that book behind you, man?
It's a 9.8.
You fell in love with it, didn't you?
Yeah, for sure. And you know, it's one of those books. It's got the white cover, so if it's not a 9.8, it's not going to look good. Like, it's got to be perfect.
Yeah, man.
That's one. Like, I'm not a really big stickler about that, but for that one, like, you know, I really enjoyed that book, and I wanted, you know, also there was a little bit of spec involved because it's one of those books that people have fallen in love with it, and they're very fanatical about it, even though there's no talk of it being optioned or it having any like movie or TV shows being made. And so it's just one of those things. Like, it's a matter of time before it's going to happen, and if it does, man, that thing's going to just skyrocket.
That's cool, man.
But it's consistently been a good series, which is why I felt like I needed to get it.
Cool. I love that. I love that. That's the very book that got you into collecting again, and that you have it in that beautiful grade, slabbed, and it's just like sitting there as a trophy. I just think that's awesome, man. So let's see here. Someone was saying that they've got some of the similar tastes as you. Rag718 says he never picked up Image either. So yeah, I stayed away from that. There it is. Man from Beantown says the Jim Lee X-Men run is what got him started into collecting as well.
Nice.
So, but we got a couple more people in the chat. I just want to say hi to the Gray Man, Ruben Nieves. What's going on? Or is it Neves? You got to tell me if I'm pronounced. I see everything as a Hispanic man. So I see Nieves, but maybe it's Neves. Brandon Stawinski Comics. What's going on? Thank you for stopping by. Werewolf by Lunchtime. What is going on, brother? Popcom. Hey, man. Mike and I are going to be doing a series, guys. Look for it. We're going to compare the world of Pops, Funko Pops, with the world of comics. It's going to be a blast late March, so keep that in mind. DS, what's up, man? So DS helped me submit my first CGC submission. I called him up, chewed his ear off. He gave me all kinds of wonderful information. That video is going to be coming out soon. So DS, I'm getting those books back soon. So keep an eye out for that. Let's see here.
Yeah, I just want to jump in and say,
yeah,
Werewolf by Lunchtime. That's one of the coolest names or screen names I've ever seen. That's funny.
He's a great guy, man, and he is from Australia, I believe. I think I'm always guessing at that, but yeah. So, all right, well, let's get over to my I guess comic book history. So I started collecting back in the day because my sister's boyfriend at the time, a guy used to come over to our house all the time, was a huge part of our family, ended up marrying my sister. But when he was just, you know, like a 14-year-old and I was like 8, he came into my room, and I guess to just be the cool guy that loves the little brother or whatever. And he did. He genuinely loved me. He gave me a stack of comic books. And they included a bunch of books from the Infinity Gauntlet set. And maybe I was a little older. Maybe I was like 9. But he included some Infinity Gauntlet stuff, some Death of Superman stuff, and just a whole bunch of things. And those were the only books I had for a long time, and I'd read through them a bunch. And so I convinced my mom to take me to buy a bunch of cards because I was really into sports. I was really into collecting baseball cards, basketball cards, Michael Jordan, Deion Sanders, you know, whatever I could find. And I went and picked up my first comic ever, which is right here. And I've showed this quite a few times. But I picked up this baby here. And this is the first comic I spent my own money on. And so I read comics throughout high school. I read comics, you know, up until the point where I couldn't afford them anymore because I had babies on the way. So, I mean, most of you guys know The Boy Who Had 7. I have 7 kids. I got married to my high school sweetheart like 2 days after we graduated, and we had our first baby within the next couple of months. And so, I mean, when you've got babies and diapers and milk to pay for, like, comic books just go out the window. And so we had 7 kids within 9 years. And so I just didn't have any extra cash to spend on comics. So in 2015, I was watching the Return of Superman, not Return of Superman, just Man of Steel. And I just was like, man, this movie's so good. And I just remember, hey, I need to go upstairs and check out my Death of Superman books that my brother-in-law gave me. So I went upstairs, started reading them, and then I'm like, I don't have the rest. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to find every single book, crossover, and everything. And I just started collecting all the Death of Superman, all of the Funeral for a Friend, Reign of the Superman, and all on. And so from that point on, like I just started collecting. And that's kind of where I want to start off tonight, because I made some big mistakes like you too, man. And I have this specific story that I want to share with everybody, because I mean, it's embarrassing as can be. There are so many signs where I shouldn't have let this happen to me, and yet it did. So so check it out. I started looking on eBay, finding all of these books. I decided in the end of 2015, I'm going to go check out the comic stores in El Paso. And I hadn't been to a whole bunch of them for like the last 10 years. So talking about all my kiddos, huh? He had 6 and then 1 8 years later. Luckily, I mean, we don't have any twins, so that would have put us over the edge. But anyway, so I started looking for different comic shops, and I found one literally like 3 minutes down the street from my house. And it was the same comic shop that I'd visited as a kid, but it was in a different location. And so this guy moved throughout, the years that I didn't collect. I went in there and I started just seeing all kinds of stuff that I wanted. And I caught the fever. I bought one book from the guy, and he, there's so many things just that we want to share with you guys. But this guy, first of all, was the nicest guy you can imagine. And every time he'd come into the shop, I'd bring my kids in, and he's like, hey, give your kids an ice cream. And here, have a bottle of water. Give them a soda. And so I'm sitting there like, man, this guy's so nice. And so I think this guy's my friend. So the part of the story I'm going to share with you tonight, because this story is long and there's so many points that I want to point out with you throughout the time that John and I do this show, is that I get a call from him one day and he's like, Matt, I've got a Star Wars 1 in a 10.0. And I'm like, no way. He's like, yeah, it's the cleanest copy you'll ever see in your life. Come in and get this book. I'm going to give you a really good price on it. And so I'm like, all right, I'm going right now. So I head in, I get to the counter, and he's like, here it is. And he shows it to me, pulls it out. He's like, this is the most beautiful 10.0 you'll ever see. And as soon as I look at it, I start seeing creases, and I start seeing dings, and I start seeing color breaking ticks. And I'm like, time out. Like, this is not a 10, man. Like, this is the wrong one. And the guy has glasses. So in my head, I'm thinking, okay, maybe he just didn't see well. His glasses are pretty darn thick. And so I'm like, okay, and he's not a healthy guy. He's had some health issues and things. So I'm just like, okay, this isn't it, bro. Definitely this is not a 10.0. So he's like, oh, my bad. He's like, let me go look. So he goes over to the edge where he has his other box. He pulls it out and he starts looking through it. And I kind of go over there with him, and I can tell he doesn't want me to see. But the guy's got like 10 copies of Star Wars 1 in there. And he starts looking at it, and he's like, no. And he pulls out, oh, yeah, this is it. This is it right here, man. So he pulls it out, hands it to me, and I look at it, and it looks nicer for sure. But I'm like, I don't know if this is a 10.0. But guys, at this point, I had caught the fever. Okay, I wanted to believe him so bad. I wanted, like Sasquatch was saying, to find a book that I could retire on. I didn't know much about comics at this point. I didn't know about grading. I didn't know how to see, if a book is a 10.0 or not. I was just learning all those things. And I'm like, okay, all right, I'll take it. And you know what? I'll take another one too. That way I can have 2 of these Star Wars ones, since Star Wars is blowing up and all these movies are coming and everything, right? So he's like, all right.
2 10.0s?
Yeah, man, 2 10.0. So I asked him, well, what's this other one? What's this grade? He's like, that's a 9.8 for sure. And so I'm like, okay, cool. So what price do you want? And this is embarrassing and it's ridiculous, but it's to save you guys. He's like, I'll give you a real good deal. I usually sell them for $600 each. If you buy both of them, I'll give them to you for $4.75 each. And so I'm like, in my head, I'm like, deal. This is a deal. This is amazing. Man, I'm getting $175 off, or or $125 off this book. I'll take them both. So I spend the $950, guys, on these 2 Star Wars ones. I take them home. I cherish them. I tell my kids, you guys, I'm going to give these to you when you're in college, and you're going to just have the bet. You're going to be able to sell them then if you want, or keep them, but they're going to make you a lot of money in the future. And then a couple years pass, and I start learning about grading, and I start learning about how much Star Wars ones are worth. And I find out I probably have a 9.6 and a 9.4, and they're probably worth between $175 and $200. And so I'm like, what did I do? And during that period of time that it took me to figure out what I did with those Star Wars books, I spent another 10 grand at this guy's store, guys. I found that I spend $75 for $5, $10 books. And so it just killed me to finally find out and wake up and realize, what the heck did I do for the last year and a half? And my wife's sitting here next to me. The very first time she ever met the guy, she told me he was a sleazebag. And she's like, I don't want you shopping in there. I don't want you going. But again, I had that fever, that desire, that I didn't listen even to her, right? So I see you guys all like in the chat talking about this. That is just a little part of this story, guys. That's one of the times that this LCS owner took me for what I was worth. And so Sasquatch and I want to break it down for you guys tonight so we can help anybody out there avoid something similar to what I went through. Because I threw away $700, And so, Big Lion Cat saying, listen to the wife. And Lindsay saying, hashtag the girl who had 7. I mean, that's one of the many lessons that I needed to learn. And so definitely should have listened to her. But Sasquatch, we want to talk about the fever. And I know that you guys, when we kind of break this down and think about it a little bit more, you're going to understand the exact feeling. And Sasquatch was telling me, some when he caught the fever, some of the things that he did. And I'm thinking, John, you want to kind of talk about the fever for a second?
The fever, man. The fever is what we call it when you have that insatiable desire to want to just buy more and more. Like you have that urge to just purchase comics, right? And so I caught the fever like last summer, like I said, when I first started looking for that Saga 9.8. And I think the fever is like a combination of a lot of things, man. It's a combination of, number one, like finding something that you're really into. So comic books was something that I was like, cool, this is a great hobby. I love it. This is something I used to enjoy when I was a kid. And now they have these adult themed comic books. So now that I'm older, it's a story that I can enjoy now as an older person. So I don't necessarily have to read the superhero books. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just that at that point in my collecting, that was kind of like my gateway back into it. Because I think that's why I stopped for that while, for that little bit in high school, was because I saw comic books as being kind of like kid stuff. And so when I found out that they made books that were more of this like mature theme, that caught me right there. And so it's a mixture of that passion, but then also understanding like, man, there's no denying it, man. Like comic books sometimes are worth money. And when you figure that out and you come into it as like an intelligent, rational adult, and you're like, you know what, man, if I'm smart about this, I can rig the system, or I can figure this out. And before long, you kind of get addicted to that sort of that high of, or the promise of buying low and selling high, which what was happening to me at the time was I was reading a lot of speculation pages, and that's really when it started. Like my fever just was like, it caught fire, man. And so I was buying, books left and right. And before I knew it, I had a short box full of books that I had no intention of reading. And I was telling Matt at one point, man, like last summer, I'm a teacher, so during the summer I don't have to go to school. I've got a lot of free time. And so sometimes, man, I would be on eBay in the middle of the night while my wife was asleep and I myself am half asleep buying stuff, and then I get these packages in the mail, not even remembering half the things that I ordered sometimes, man.
Yeah.
And so that's when the fever gets really bad, is when you're it's like muscle memory, like your body's just buying stuff on eBay and your brain's not even like 100% into it. And but the fever can be caused by a lot of things. It can be caused by spec, it can be caused by hype. You know, sometimes we get the fever for our favorite characters. Sometimes if you're a completionist, you get the fever for having to have every single issue in a certain run. Sometimes the fever can be that FOMO feeling, fear of missing out, where like right now, like the big one is I think the Immortal Hulk, right? Where people are like, oh my God, I gotta jump in right now because the prices are jumping, and if I don't jump in now, I'm never gonna be able to afford it.
Yeah.
So stuff like that, man. The fever can be caused by all sorts of things, but the symptoms are not being able to put that phone down, like always being on your phone, always reading up information, always buying stuff, always researching, and it can be a really it can be pretty serious sometimes, man.
Yeah. For sure, brother. I got issues says my credit card bill is proof that my fever turned into a terminal illness. And I feel him 100%, man. So
It's true.
I mean,
it's
go for it.
I was gonna say, like, you know, comic book collecting is one of those things. Like, I first got into it because I wanted to read the stories, and that's what drew me in. And I think that there's a certain, you have to really understand the type of person that you are. And like I said, like I describe myself as having passion for all of my hobbies. So like,
Yeah,
when I got into music, I really got into music. Like I did that as a hobby first, and then I became a professional musician for like 10 years. And so,
yeah,
you know, I took in like full on, like I do everything 110%. And you know, some people would say that I have a very an addictive personality, which I have to be careful of, because when I jump into something like comic books, I can't just do it casually, man. Like I have to go all in. And
yeah,
so even now, like once I got that saga book, which, you know, for some people that's unattainable, and for me at this point, like I'm looking at other books, like I told you yesterday, man, I'm looking at books like the Hulk 181s and the Giant Size X-Men's and those things, like, you know, those all of a sudden feel like they're within reach. And it's like, when does it stop? When does it ever stop? Like, so you reach that tier that you want to get to, and then there's always that next level that you can get to. So even the guys that are like, you know, they've got like the Fantastic Fours and like the Amazing Fantasy 15s, like they want to start collecting Golden Age books.
yeah,
Because, you know, it's a fever, man. There's no cure for the fever.
yeah. You know, there's a couple things that made me realize that the fever was doing damage to me. And so, I mean, you know, to get serious for a second, there's people I've talked to in this community that are fighting with their spouses or that aren't being able to pay bills because they've got so caught up on spending their money as a true addiction. And those are guys that we don't want that to happen to them. We don't want them to not be able to pay the electricity because they picked up a GSX-1. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We don't want anybody in the community to be, you know, fighting with their spouse because they picked up books that they shouldn't have. You know what I'm saying? I mean, Matt Thanatos, he, you know, when he had that 3-hour long video that's famous now, he said it himself. Maybe he should have spent some more time on his kids and spending things for them than picking up books. So it's something real, and it's something that can definitely damage your life. But these are the things that I started thinking about when the fever started hurting me. Number one was when I started getting books in the mail that I forgot that I had ordered. When that starts happening to you, you realize that you don't have a focus, and it's not something that you're not getting books that you want to have for a specific reason, to fill in a run, to read a specific book because this character means something to you. You're just buying because you've got an addiction, you know? Number two, I was thinking, when you get a grail and after you get it, you look at it and then it means nothing to you after that point. You know, I don't know if that's happened to you, but a few of the books that I was after, I was looking on eBay all the time. I was bidding and losing, and then I finally got them, and then I have it, and then it really just doesn't mean anything to me because it was the excitement of the hunt, which is still great about comics. The excitement about finding a book and going after it and the hunt, that's fun. But then when you have that book and you're like, this is okay, on to the next one, like whatever, who cares? That's when you're just like, man, I'm doing stuff I really shouldn't be doing, and I'm not sure if I'm spending my money wisely. And that's kind of what we want people to figure out tonight. We want people to spend their money wisely. So there's a couple people I want to shout out in the chat because they're saying some things that are important. For instance, the Gray Man, he said earlier he doesn't spend more than 50. I've never paid over $50 for a book, and that's very rare. I've gone to that much. Mind you, I've been trying to get all of runs, so as much money spent, but get more books for it. So he sets a limit for himself, and he's got to focus. I see the Gray Man and the things that he gets. He's trying to complete runs, Fantastic Four runs, Spider-Man runs, and he's all about those 50-cent books, dollar books, you know? And that's cool because that's his focus. And he realizes I need to complete the set. That's my desire. And that's what I'm going after. And he doesn't have books show up at his house. He's like, why did I get this? Where is this going? You know what I'm saying, John?
Yeah, exactly.
So, and then someone that was here earlier, I'm not sure if he's still in the chat, but Metarog, I think he is. He says he had the fever back in the 70s and 80s, but he always focused on the quarter bins. I've been on the show with Bubs Comics, Metarog, and DS. And all three of those guys really inspired me because the first time I was on the show with them, we were talking and I looked at DS, and and him and I have had conversations outside of YouTube over the phone. The guy's great. And he has a specific focus that he's going after and nothing else matters to him. And so he's got this, and you can go watch all his videos and everything, but he loves the pre-code horror stuff. That's all he goes after. And he's willing to, like, he had a Hulk 181, bro, the book that you're after. And he's decided that, you know what, if I can buy a Hulk 181, and these aren't correct numbers, this is just me shooting off, for $1,000, and then all of a sudden it's gotten hot and I can sell it for 3,000, he's going to sell it so he can go get his pre-code horror books that he just absolutely loves. And if you look at his Instagram page, that's all it is, man. And it's beautiful to look at that stuff because I don't have that focus. For so long, I was buying here and there and everything. And I look at my books, I'm like, there's like no pattern here, just craziness. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man.
And so people like him and Bubs and Metarog, who they set a limit, they never spend over that limit. They're happy picking up the books, completing runs, reading them, having them. And it's inspirational to me because they have that focus. And like the comic chief said, they've got self-control. And that's really what we're trying to get people to do is have that self-control so they don't go spend $950 on 2 Star Wars ones that aren't even worth that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think man, it's one of those things. Like, I know, you know what happened to me that made me kind of switch things or really put things in perspective was I had this I had some pipes burst in my house. My wife and I just bought a house last year.
Nice.
So we haven't owned our house for an entire year yet. And I had some pipes that burst in the house, and we were really lucky. Like, it caused a little bit of flooding, caused a lot of damage to the walls and whatnot. But I realized, like, through this entire process, like, I didn't even give my comic books one thought. Like, I didn't think about them. I wasn't worried about them.
Yeah.
It's one of those things, like, there's that test where it's like, if your house was burning down, what's the one thing that you would take with you? Honestly, the only book that I worried about was that there was that X-Men, man, that Jim Lee cover that it was I still have it. It's the first book that I ever bought.
Nice.
I was like, you know what? Even that saga #1, 9.8, that I spent so much money on, like, I honestly wouldn't have lost. I mean, it would have hurt, of course, but I honestly, like emotionally, like, I wasn't tied to that book the way that I was tied to that worthless X-Men book I've read a million times, that you know, is in really bad condition. It's because of the sentimental value. And I realized, like, man, what am I doing here? Like, why am I hoarding all these books? And you know, I was thinking, like, am I buying this because, I mean, I think I rationalize it by, and especially like when I talk to my wife, I was like, these things, they're worth money, right? I can sell them. You know, I'm having fun right now, and if I hold on to them for a little bit, when I resell them, they'll be worth more money. They're an investment.
Yeah.
But you know, even that, like that sort of like, you know, playing that sort of comic book stock market, I think is an addiction in and of itself.
Yeah.
And I had to kind of reevaluate why I was buying comic books to begin with. And it was that moment that really made me think like, wow, when you have this big event where number one, I was having to cut back on my budget for comics because we were going to have to pay for these repairs. And then number two, just realizing that had my house flooded to the point that all my comics would have been gone, honestly, the only book that I would have cared about was that Jim Lee cover.
Yeah.
That really put things into perspective. And I was like, so if they're not that important to me, why am I keeping them around? Like, why am I obsessing over this so much?
Yeah.
And that was a big deal, man. That changed a lot of things in the way that I approached it and the way that I collect to this day now. And again, it feels weird to say because it hasn't even been a year.
Yeah.
It feels like 10 years since I started collecting. But I'm a fast learner, I guess, and so you know it feels like an eternity ago. But moving forward, like I've got a totally different perspective on it.
Awesome. Yeah, man. So let's get to the chat real quick before we go on to our second point, because that's going to be perfect to go from what you just said into that. So my friend Sean, Crimson Ghost Comics, made a good point. And this is something I did wrong at first, and I think I'm doing much better at it, is you shouldn't go into debt over comics. You know, if you put your comic books on a credit card, right? Say you buy a Amazing Spider-Man 361 9.8. You spend $400 on it and you put it on a credit card and then you don't pay it off for like 4 months. Well, that $400 just turned into $650, you know? And I mean, you're just losing at that point, because when you go to resell it later and you know, you only get $400 for it again, or 450, or maybe even a lucky 500, you're still in the hole $150 because you went into debt to get that book. And I think he's got a really good point there. That's a type of focus that we want to make sure that we have. You know, if you have a plan, you've got a way to do it, then just do it right so you don't get yourself into trouble. Zero APR DK Comics. Yeah. I will say this, and you saying that, you know, brings it up with PayPal. PayPal always does like those 2 years no interest, right? And because of my financial situation, I know that if I buy a book, I'm going to be able to pay it off really soon. And so sometimes I will use my PayPal, you know, 24 months, 0% interest. I'll use it, and it works out for me. But you got to know yourself, and you got to know what you can spend and what money you have coming in or not. But I think Sean makes a good point there. We got to stay away from getting into debt, right? Issue says he has to sell drugs to get his comics. It's so stressful. Yeah, right, bro.
Hey man, really quickly, this is on a different subject, and I don't mean to derail the conversation, but I do want to give a shout out to my boy Issues, because I'm actually gonna film a video about this later, but I just got this in the mail. So we did a trade, man. So I'm sending him a piece of artwork, and he sent me this issue of the Eternals. He said earlier, he's like, "That's a nice copy of the Eternals back there," and it's all thanks to you, my man. So thank you so much. Yeah, Issues is a great guy, man. You guys should definitely be following him on Instagram if you don't.
Yeah, man. Issues is awesome. Big old teddy bear, isn't he?
He's also, you know, he did a similar show with White Whale Comics recently that I watched, which was Comics as Therapy. And they talked a lot about this. It kind of touched on it too. I mean, I think they kind of go hand in hand, man, about, you know, why grown men collect these things, right? And why we go back to it. And it's sort of it starts off as escapism. And I think that's what drew me into it, was trying to escape a lot of the stresses that I was going through in my life at that time. And it was just kind of way to get away, maybe reconnect with my childhood. But then, I mean, once you're older, man, and you make some real money, you can do a lot of damage with a credit card. You can do a lot of damage with, you know, with your weekly paycheck if you're not careful with it.
Yeah,
and that's where it becomes dangerous, man.
Yeah, and you know what? I mean, we're not trying to tell anybody what to do with their money. Everyone, you know, you are who you are, and do what you want to do. But I just know it's caused me a little bit of heartache. Some of the people I talk to that are fighting with their spouses over the debt they're in now. I mean, I know you don't want to be there. You know what I'm saying? And so we're just trying to bring these things out there so you can think about them and maybe help somebody out that is in that issue right now. So there's somebody that said something funny earlier, and I wanted to point it out. I think it was DS Comics. He's saying if he was a millionaire, he would have all the books. But that speaks really good to our point tonight, because I'm not a millionaire, and so I've got to have a better focus, and I've got to make sure I've got a game plan. And so let's go into the second part, because I think this is where we wanted to go next, is trust. Not only do we have this fever, but this fever drove me to buy these 2 Star Wars books, guys. I trusted this guy, and I should have never trusted him. And so I kind of want to put this out there today. You got to beware of sellers. Now, I just recently sold mystery boxes. I got a lot of positive feedback, and I had some people that were pretty mad at me. I got one guy in particular. I have 3 people that were kind of disappointed, and then I had a couple people that, 2 people that were pretty angry. And I get it. You know what I mean? And that's why when I did my mystery boxes, I try to be 100% upfront with exactly what people were getting, and the possibilities of getting a lower box or the possibilities of getting a big box. And so I think their anger is misplaced, because I was 100% upfront, didn't lie about everything, put every book that I said I would in there. But how do they know that? It's always a leap of faith when we're buying from a seller at any point. And I want to make sure that we don't get caught up, because we have that fever, and trusting people that should not be trusted. And so Gray Man saying that guy was a con man for sure. He definitely was. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about him. So I'm a pretty religious guy. And I love having a religious conversation. I'll spark them at a restaurant with the waiter, or at a bus, on the bus or whatever. Like, I don't mind talking about it at all. And of course, I won't get into that here. But like this guy, not only would he give your kids, ice creams and drinks when they'd come in, he'd start talking to you about your life and get to know you. And then all of a sudden, hey, let's have, he'd start talking about Jesus with me, and how much of a Christian he is, and how much, he loves God, and he's trying to do what's right. And I wanted to really believe that. Hey, NYC, see you later, brother. Thanks for stopping by. But all of this stuff like got me into believing this guy when I shouldn't have. And so, we'd always talk about religion. We'd talk about politics. We'd talk about family stuff. We talk about being sick. And the whole time, the guy's swindling me. And so tonight, we kind of want to break that down too, and say, why was I able to be so swindled? Like, it kills me, guys, thinking that I spent over 10 grand at this guy's shop in like a year and a half. And I probably got about $2,000 worth of books. I mean, yeah, he is a scumbag, bro. And it's hard for me not to go to his shop on a daily basis with a sign, don't buy from this guy, because his shop is still 3 minutes from my house, So, I mean, John, what did I do wrong, bro? What could I have done to counteract believing this guy? What did I need to go in armed with in order to make better, more educated decisions?
Well, first of all, my first suggestion was don't go, or if you're going to go shopping for comics, man, especially at a new shop where you don't know the person, always take one of these with you. That'll be very helpful. I'm just kidding. Honestly, man, it's one of those things where, it's always you have to understand, first of all, that no matter what industry, whether you're buying a car or you're buying, a big book, it's buyer beware, man. Like, you have to know your stuff going in, right? And so, honestly, like, dude, you and I talk about how we see other people doing it all the time, man, where they go in and they get the fever, and then they feel like either number one, they don't go in armed with the proper information to make an educated decision, or B, they understand the risk, and they just think that it's not going to happen to them. Like, they're not going to be the one to be stuck with a book that's going to drop in value. They're going to be the one guy who gets to profit off of it. Yeah. And both of those things are just dangerous situations, because sometimes you win, but a lot of times you lose, man.
Yeah.
And think in your case, like, you know, you honestly, like, I'm a very trusting person too. I don't believe that people are inherently bad. I think for the most part, people are good. Um, and so I honestly don't know, like, I think probably what you could have done to arm yourself would have been just to do more research and just to have taken the time. So for you, it was a combination of not having enough experience, not having enough knowledge, and also being fresh to the hobby, so that you felt like if you weren't going to buy it, he was going to sell it to somebody else. Like you were missing out on
Yep.
an opportunity. But just like with anything else, man, I mean, you know, you're a businessman, and like we're both adults, you know, successful in our fields, and it's like you wouldn't approach your business with that same type of like eagerness, right? You would make sure that
No.
you know everything that you're talking about, that you know how that you're making the right decision. And I think a lot of times we kind of have to step back and saying, you know, am I being blinded by the fever right now? Like, is this because like, am I really making the right decision? And unfortunately, there's going to be guys out there that understand this about other people and are going to use it to take advantage, right? So this guy probably saw you coming from a mile away. He treated you really nicely. You know, he was nice to your kids. He saw that you were coming in, probably saw you eyeballing a book, maybe saw you wearing a Star Wars T-shirt or whatever, and he was going to offer you the deal of the century, man. And I think, you know, as we know now, like if it sounds too good to be true, most likely it is, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, like I saw somebody passing around a picture today of a Hulk 181 that somebody was trying to sell for like $350, which is unheard of, man. Like that's never going to happen. It's never going to happen.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, some poor sap out there is going to believe it and think that they found the one grandma who's like trying to sell off her dead husband's collection and doesn't know what it's worth. Like, and I don't think that happens to most people. Like those stories they're like urban legends. Like maybe it happened, maybe it didn't, but it's probably not going to happen to you.
Yeah.
And so, you know, you just kind of have to go in there knowing that. Um, I know that you and I have had this conversation though. Like I've been to, for instance, I like to go into a comic book or into a new situation. Like if I go to a flea market, for instance,
Yeah.
you know, these are people that set up for the weekend. You don't know if they're going to be back the next weekend, if you'll ever see them again. And you know, I always like to play like I'm the naive collector, just to kind of see like where they're coming from, because I probably have more knowledge about the books that they have than they do, or at least just as much as they do. And I like to kind of test them, and I'll pretend like I'm interested in something, and I'll ask them for their prices. And depending on their answers to those questions, I can tell right off the bat, like if this person is honest or if he's trying to like pull one over on me. And the
Yeah.
guys that are you know, shady, I will not deal with them at all. But my point earlier was that you and I have talked about this, like here, at least here in San Antonio. I don't know about anywhere else, but all the people that I've dealt with in person, um, I don't like of all those people, like I don't feel like I've met anybody that wasn't trying to pull one over on me. And
Yeah.
so I buy a lot of books like face to face here in San Antonio because I always feel like they're trying to swindle me. They always try and, you know, or either they don't know what their books are worth, or they assume that I don't know what they're worth. But through Instagram, I don't think that at this point I've only met one person, and luckily he didn't burn me. But I've only met one person that kind of screwed over people that he sold to.
Yeah.
It seems like, and which is a strange thing because, you know, you meet all these friends online, and these people that, you know, we're miles and miles away from each other, sometimes different states, some people from different parts of the world, and you kind of have to put a lot of trust in that. And and I don't know if that's the reason for it or what, but for some reason, every time that I've bought something through Instagram or even eBay for that matter, I feel like I've always gotten really good deals. I've dealt with people that were really honest,
Yeah.
that were trying to pull one over on me. But in person, for some reason, it seems like a totally different story. And again, that could just be because of where I'm from. It could just be because of the, you know, the flea markets that I'm going to. Maybe are on the wrong side of town. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's what makes the community so special. Everybody talks about this online community, and I kind of get kind of wary like when people are too sappy about it, because again, you kind of have to go into it with your eyes wide open, understanding that that could potentially happen. But at least up till this point, man, I've been lucky that all the friends that I've made, all the people that I've bought from, have been very honest and haven't screwed me over. So
Yeah, man. I love the community. Like when I did the mystery boxes, if you guys could have gotten inside my brain, it was more like I cared more about making sure people got good boxes and saw me as a good person, were happy with them, than making the extra buck, you know? And so, I mean, there's a lot of people in the community like that. Like they would rather give you a deal because they know you, because they frequent your YouTube channel, because you frequent theirs, because you guys talk on Instagram, and it's great. But some of these LCS owners, man, and not all of them, I have, out of the 7 shops I have here in town, there's 2 guys that I like, and you can tell over the 2.5 years I've been going now with them that they're better people. But the other ones, man, there's some shady guys here and a shady woman. But let me throw it out to the chat real quick. Bub was asking what happened, and I'm not sure if he's still here. But just really quick, Bub, I went to my LCS that I'd been spending a lot of time with, and he told me he had a 10.0 Star Wars 1. He told me he'd give me a good deal if I bought the 10.0 and the 9.8 that he had. So I bought both of them for $475 each. They ended up coming back like a 9.6 and a 9.4. And the guy just lied to me and swindled me. And he did that with multiple books. So that's kind of what we're talking about tonight. Brandon says that's why I should have listened to my wife. He's absolutely right. I should have done that. And then let's see. Issue says you got to do your homework. And I think DK Comics said, before I drop the cash, I always do the research. And she researches everything that she buys. And then JP, what's up, JP? I don't think I've said hi to you, brother. Hope you're doing well. He said, research on information. I never buy without knowing what I'm after. So what I was thinking is first thing you have to do in order to avoid things like this when you're just getting into comics is realize that fever is real, right? We talked about that already. I think the second thing we got to do is have some type of focus and a reason for why we're collecting and what we're collecting. Because here's the thing, and this is where I got this idea from, guys. I've seen a lot of my friends that may even be in this chat tonight and watching the video. I see the stuff that everyone's buying, and it reminds me of what I was doing back then. And I don't know if I'm 100% correct, and I don't want to judge anybody's, what books they're buying or what those books mean to them. But I've seen quite a few people just going crazy, just buying everything that they can with no focus. And I think at some point they're going to sit back and say, like, what did I do? I spent all of this money on these books that really aren't worth much, so I'm not going to be able to flip them and make any more money. May not even be able to get my money back. And I've spent so much money that I could have had an Avengers 1 right now. Like I literally see people in the community dropping thousands and thousands of dollars on stuff that personally I'm like, what are you doing? You stop. So I think the first thing you've got to do when you start collecting is you've got to have a focus and a reason for what you're collecting, And so with you, John, you were able to say, you know what, I love this saga story, and that's what got you into comics.
Yep.
And then you had your focus, and you decided, this is what I want. This is what I'm going to do. And I recently, guys, barely decided to narrow my focus. And it was after talking to DS Comics. It was after getting ready to sell all of the books I'd bought over the last 3 years in these mystery boxes that I had. And I realized, okay, now I know what I want. And now I know what I want, what it's worth. And so now I have a better way of going into looking at things, right? So that's first. You want to add anything to that?
Yeah, we're talking about focus. So like number one, like saga isn't necessarily my focus anymore. But I know what you mean. So like just an example of that. Like at the beginning, I got into the stories, and that's why I was reading it. I wasn't in it for speculation at all.
Hey, Fuchsia, what's up?
And it wasn't something that, like, that's not the reason that I started collecting. I collected because I wanted to read these stories, and it was just a form of entertainment, like purely entertainment.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I started looking into buying the first issue of Saga because I liked it so much that I realized how much it was worth. And then I was like, well, you know what? I kind of got into I kind of got bit by the bug because of the thrill of the hunt to find it, and I was able to get a really good deal on it. And then at that point, that's when I started thinking, like, I can hold on to this as an investment. If it's worth this much now, who knows how much it's going to be worth, a year down the line, 2 years down the line, or when they option it for TV or whatever. That's when it all started to snowball. And so, like, man, we talked about how I started reading all the top 10 lists. I started reading a lot of these speculation pages, and that's when you end up with books like, I've got this one, The Last Days of American Crime, which is a Rick Remender book, which may or may not be a good story. I wouldn't know because I didn't read it and I have no interest in it, but I bought it because it was on top 10 list and I paid top dollar for it. And here we are, not even a year later. I probably won't be able to get my money back on it. And at this point, we don't even know if the show's going to happen.
Yeah.
Another one, here's a winner. I've got The Kitchen #1, which was a hot book of the week because I think there's some big name actress that was attached to this project and it was going to be made into either TV show or movie.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't know if it's a good story because I haven't read it because I have absolutely zero interest in it. I just bought it because I saw dollar signs. I saw, I wanted to buy it thinking that it was just going to keep going up and up in price. And at that early stage in my collecting process, I didn't realize that there's like a shelf life for these things, right? So they're going to go up for that week where they're getting that hype. And then immediately, and that's when you want to sell, is like when you've bought it and you already have it and it shows up on the top 10 list and everybody's scrambling to get it. That's when you want to sell. And then after that, it's either going to plateau or it's just going to drop in price. But I didn't realize that. And so, again, like luckily for me, like I don't have a whole lot of books like that, but those are just a couple of examples. And I keep those as reminders of like, you don't want to get too deep into this because otherwise you're going to be stuck with a whole bunch of books that you don't really care about, man. And ultimately, for me, it's that's really important, is that I care about all the stuff that I read.
Yeah. Thoro Kuboro said that's why you got to go with what you like and what you want and not buying everything out there or you'll go broke super quick. And I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, man. So actually I have a mantra and I think I'm going to make a t-shirt or maybe even just get this tattooed on my forehead or something like that. And I say this to myself when I go to the comic book store because it's really tempting, man, especially with all the cool variants that come out and whatnot. But my mantra is, if you don't read it, you don't need it.
I like that.
And so I just kind of say that to myself over and over again, and it's actually worked so far. And also the other thing too is like I'm now like in the process of purging a lot of these books that I honestly don't care about, like I'm not emotionally tied to. So like that's why I really love that Eternals book, because I read the first issue, I fell in love with it.
Yeah.
Now I'm interested in it. I'm not just collecting that one because it's a spec book. I will hold on to that one because I actually love the story. But there's other books like, man, if we look up here, yeah, I don't know. Like I picked up a couple of those variants up there. Like this one up here is the Hulk 181 variant, I think.
Yeah.
That one I picked up because I thought it was going to be a smart investment because it was one of those cover swipe.
Yeah.
And I guess it's luckily it happened to be a variant for Immortal Hulk, which is really hot right now. But I lucked out, man. That I bought it because I thought everybody loves Hulk 181. I'm going to be able to flip this for a profit. But it's again one of those books that I'm not really all that emotionally attached to anymore. So it feels good to purge those things now.
Yeah.
And so not that I want to use this as a platform to sell, but I'm willing more now, like on some of those books, like I'm more willing to kind of just give people good deals, because if it means something to somebody else, I'd much rather them be able to enjoy it. But it doesn't make me feel good to sell to other people who, like, you can tell when somebody's buying from you and they have that fever.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure like even when you were selling those boxes, man, people kind of get drawn into this whole idea of winning the big grail or taking a chance. And it is gambling in a way. And sometimes, like, I don't want to be somebody's enabler or dealer. I've never said no to selling something to somebody, because actually I almost did one time, but it's not my place to control other people and the way that they spend their money. But it does make me feel good when other people who actually do care about these things, I get to pass it on to them, because I know that feeling, and that's like my Saga book. Like, I love that book, man. I don't want to get rid of it, but it's just a comic book.
It's true, man. So I wanted to point some things out. Let's see. Eddie, the comic guy, and Thorough Q Borer said you should actually read The Kitchen. They're saying that if you like Goodfellas, you'll love The Kitchen. So wanted to throw that out there for you, man.
Don't try and make me feel good for my don't try and make me feel better for my mistake, man. I'm trying to teach lessons here.
Right?
It's a horrible book. Don't buy it. Don't read it.
And then let's see here. So Vinny pointed out something that I want to touch on, but I want to be gentle. And that's the fact that he stopped watching all the top 10 videos on YouTube. I don't want to ever knock anybody for what they're doing. So this is not about knocking anybody at all. If someone wants to do that as part of what they do on their channel, that's awesome. What I want to caution everybody is there's a hype that goes along with those videos. And you need to do some research on how long those books on those top 10 lists last on that top 10 list before you go out and get stuck in that hype and spend all your money on these books that are rising. And then all of a sudden they plummet and you're stuck with a book you paid $100 for, but you can only get $20 for now. So that's one thing that we want to make sure that your focus will help you avoid, Another thing that somebody said is they've got a budget, and I think it was maybe Fuchsia. What's up, Surf Blue? I'm not sure if you're still here, but you said hi and you're going to stop by real quick. So hope you're doing well, man. Let's see here. Yeah. See, so Vinny's saying the hype. I think if you have a focus on what books you're going to collect and why. And so like John, you're saying, if you don't read it, you don't need it. Right. Mm-hmm. I don't mind myself personally. I'll jump in a spec here and there. I don't mind gambling a little bit, I guess, but you have to know that it's gambling, right? Because, and usually I don't get a spec book unless I like the book and the character, and I'm going to be happy being stuck with it. So for instance, there's this variant, and that's a big lesson that we're going to talk about on another day, variants. But there's this Wolverine variant, and I think it is of Return of Wolverine #5, where he's on a motorcycle and he's got his claws out and they're making sparks on the ground. And I don't know if you guys have seen that one. Have you seen it, John?
Yeah, man, it's beautiful.
Oh my gosh, it's gorgeous. And so as soon as I saw it, I was like, one, it's a spec book because this could be one of those variants that blows up. But two, if I get stuck with it, I'm okay because that cover is absolutely gorgeous. So I picked up a raw copy and I got one of those pre 9.8 copies because I know a Wolverine fan in my life that would love to have that book. So I bought one so I could give it away during Christmas time later this year. And then I bought one to keep for myself, man. And so you just got to be careful. And I was okay realizing I may be able to flip this, but if I don't, I'm cool being stuck with it. And that's because I've got my focus now and I've got a specific budget. And once you've got your budget and you're able to have self-control and keep that budget, you're going to be okay. And so even if those books pop up and they don't fit in your budget this month, once that hype dies down in you, like literally people have said, you want to buy a book so bad, don't buy it instantly. Take 24 hours, sleep on it, come back. I've done that a few times. And bro, like I don't even want that book anymore the next day. You know what I'm saying? That hype dies. You start thinking it through, processing it in your brain. You're like, I really don't need that book. What's up, Economic and Comics? How are you, man? Thank you for showing that sick support. That was a weak version of sick. Did you hear that, dude? So let's see here. Let's see who else is in the chat.
Yeah, top 10 list, man. We're gonna probably have to do an entire episode on that too.
For sure, we need to. We definitely need to.
Comes to me like, yeah, I'm the same way, man. I kind of got like it's interesting because on the one hand I appreciate it because I think like one thing that kind of drew me into this whole IG comic community and the YouTube comic community was the top 10 and I'll say it, Comic Tom show. Like I was following Comic Tom. Mm-hmm. And then, over time, like since, I don't know, man, it's been months now that I just don't watch those shows anymore because I realize like I get too hyped up, man. Like I'll I used to have this this sort of ritual, is that like on Saturday mornings, what I would do, like the show comes on Friday, I'd wake up on Saturday morning, watch the show on TV, and then take notes, and then go to the comic book store. And that was like my Saturday ritual, just looking for all these books.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's at first it's kind of fun, and it's exciting, especially when you're able to find them and you take pictures and you brag to everybody else about how you found them and whatnot. And it's cool to see your name up on the screen and stuff. But what they don't tell you, man, is that once you have them, what do you do with them? Like sometimes you can buy the, like I don't have like an example off the top of my head, but or I guess I don't know, maybe one of these books that I just showed you, like you buy the books and it's not always easy to sell them. Like even if you buy them low, like you can go find a book in a dollar bin. You can find the books, you know, at a garage sale or something like that. But that doesn't necessarily mean that if you post it on eBay or on Instagram, somebody's going to actually purchase it from you. So sometimes you get stuck with those books, even in a good situation.
Yeah.
So,
you know,
think about.
Bub's making a good point. He's saying you guys are using the hot book alert wrong. Watch them and hit the dollar bins. Spec for $1 is a safe investment, and that's 100% true. The problem is that when you don't find it in the dollar bin, where do you go? You go to eBay. You know what I'm saying? And then you're like, hey, you know what? It's at $60 right now, and I couldn't find it in the dollar bin. So now I'm thinking maybe it's going to go to $80. So I should spend that $60 real quick. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man. And here's where that rationale comes around, because, and that's where, like, I get your point, Bub. But honestly, like I told Matt a story when I was in college. I was living up in Illinois. And at the time, I wasn't collecting at all, but I happened to go into a comic book store just because there was one in the neighborhood, and I had some free time, and I walked in, and on the wall I saw an issue of Walking Dead #1, and they were asking $200 for it. And in my mind at that moment, I thought, who's crazy enough to pay $200 for a zombie comic book, and it's in black and white, no less. And I thought it was crazy. And then years later, I thought to myself, man, I had the chance to buy that book at $200, and here it is worth, you know, $1,200 now. I should have done it. And so, yeah, it's really easy to say, like, you know, you should stick to the dollar bins. But how many people are like, you know, how many stories have you heard of like that Ghost Spider variant that just came out? Some people bought it for $200, and then they were able to flip it for $700. So, I mean, yeah, it's easy to say that, but sometimes, man, it's the temptation's there, and you still have to have that self-control, because, and then there's the whole adage, man, like fortune favors the bold, and sometimes if you're not willing to throw up that $200, you know, you're not going to get the big payout. Not that I want to influence anybody to do that, but you know, you just, again, I think that's where the budget comes into play. Like if you don't have the $200 to spend, then don't speculate thinking that you're going to take that $200 and turn it into $400, because most likely it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like, I know you know him, but I'm not sure if the guys in the chat and the gals in the chat know him. But the Real Comic Night, he wants to be on the show because he wants to share a few times where he's snoozed and he's losed. You know what I mean? He lost out. So he's like, man, I want to be on the show and I want to talk about the times that I missed out on a book because I wasn't prepared with my budget or I wasn't ready. So we're definitely on one of our next shows going to talk with him, invite him on, and that way we can discuss that whole thing, because sometimes you have to be bold. Sometimes you have to take the gamble, and sometimes it pays off, but you got to do it wisely, and you've got to have your life prepared to be able to do that, you know?
Yeah, man, it's like when they say, like, when you go to Vegas, you're not supposed to gamble with money you don't have.
Yeah.
That's what it is, man.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. So these guys are all laughing in the chat because they're talking about dollar bins and 25-cent bins, man. At all of my comic shops here in town, it's always cover price. So I don't even have those, man.
Yeah, we don't have here in San Antonio. We don't have a lot of dollar bins or quarter bins at all, man. It's slim pickings.
Yeah, man.
And even at my LCS, like after a couple of weeks or so, they take the books off the shelf and they bag and board them, and then they charge you just a flat $5 for back issues.
Oh my god, that's horrible, bro. That's horrible, man. So there's some guys in here, Rag718. This guy has some great books, man. Love this guy's stuff. And he's saying that he's found a bunch of 9.8 slabbed books in the dollar bin. you know, that's the other thing that's why this show is called Amateur Hour. I'm still an amateur when it comes to that. I don't know how to look in the dollar bins and find those, you know, those 9/8s. Like I think I could do it, but I know after seeing the stuff that Rag has, you know, he's an expert at it, just like DS Comics. I mean, the other day he had a Thor 337 and a 9.8. He found it in the dollar bins, sent it off to CGC, got back 9.8 white pages, sold it for a huge amount of profit, man. I mean, that's epic to be able to do that. And I want to get to that point that I can do that, you know. But if I'm spending all of my money on all these variants and all these hot 10 comics and all these spec books, you know what I mean? There goes all my money to find the dollar bin books and then to CGC them and to make that profit. So there's where the focus comes in again. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man. I mean, and you touched on it, man. That's the amateur hour. Like that was intentional because both you and I are still learning lessons on this. And like, sometimes I think, you know, number one, who has time to go through dollar bins sometimes? I mean, I love to do it. Don't get me wrong. Like, like one of my favorite things is going to half price books and just flipping through all those books because you can find some deals in there sometimes. But then sometimes I think like, I guess maybe this was like my my rationale was like, it's not working for me necessarily because to really make it work, I got to be the dude that's buying up collections, or to really make it work, like I got to be the guy that's like going to estate sales and waking up earlier than everybody and showing up on this certain day.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, everybody has their system and there are other things that they like to do, but nothing is guaranteed, man. Even some of these tips, like, you know, it's great when you hear stories like that. I love hearing stories like that. That's all part of the fun of it.
Yeah.
I can tell you, I myself have never been that lucky. And that's why those, you know, people hear about those stories because we pass them around. They're like urban legends, man.
Yeah. Yeah, man. All these guys are talking, like Soldier just said, in his quarter bin, they'll have books that came out just weeks earlier. Like, man, where's that shop in El Paso, man? And then you get like one of those spec books in there, like Immortal Hulk. Do you know how many Immortal Hulk? What was it? It's Avenger 684.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how many were available for like the first 3 or 4 months?
Oh,
like,
yeah, man.
There was like 50 just stuck on the shelves here in El Paso for months. And all of a sudden that book just got hot. And now the other day I'm sitting here thinking like, maybe I should spend the 175 on the 9.8. And now it's like $300, the 9.8. You know what I mean? Like, I should have just bought a couple of them when they were cover price still.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I love half price books, man. And so like that's the one place I go to because like I said, my local comic shops don't really have dollar bins.
Yeah.
Like I know like if I want to if I'm looking for more of like the older books like Bronze Age, Silver Age, I'll go to the Midtown half price books because it's in an older neighborhood with more established homes and like the people that are selling their books there are older people.
Yeah.
If I want like new books, I'll go to the one that's on the north side near the UTSA, which is the university up there, because I know all those college kids, man, when they need beer money, they're going and they're selling all their books to half price books, man. You can find, I've literally found books that were just released that week at half price books.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's like all these different half price books in town have like different personalities, man, depending on the people that live around them.
You know what? I love that, bro, because that is the fun part of comic book collecting. You know, the guys are talking about how long it takes to go through the dollar bin. And they're talking about their $1.50 bins and then finding, like Crimson Ghost says he found a Green Lantern Rebirth #1 signed by Jeff Johns last weekend in the 50-cent bin. That is a heck of a lot of fun. And when you're spending, you know, 50 cents here and there, it's just a great buy. It's fun. That's why I love doing this. And I've had those days. Like I told you, I found, I think it was 7 Thanos 13s here in town, you know, and they're all sold now. And I got them all for cover price and I sold them all for 75 to $125, you know.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, man. So, I mean, when I found those books, I felt elated, bro. I was sitting there and I'm underneath this table and this long box. And then I pull that long box out and then I'm in the next one. And all of a sudden I see the purple and I'm like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? And I pull it out and then I pull another one out And then I pull another one out. Lindsay, thanks for stopping by, girlfriend. Really appreciate you being here.
Hey, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Like, maybe this is getting into like ethics and a little bit, right? Because we talked about how that guy scammed you out of a lot of money.
Yeah.
And was just very dishonest.
Yeah.
We haven't actually talked about this, and this is kind of I just thought about this. So when you're in a situation like that and you found all those Thanos 13s knowing what they're worth, right?
Yeah.
Do you feel bad about, like, do you think for a moment like maybe I should tell them that they have all these like really expensive books for $1, or do you just, is it like, you lucked out because they're there?
You know what? With this lady, she is the kind of person that you'll take up a book and it's like bent and ugly, and you're like, hey, can I get this for $1? And she's like, no, cover price. And so all the years I'd been in her shop and seen that she does that, I'm like, hey, you need to know, not me. It's your job to know. You own a comic book shop. That's your job to know. You know what I'm saying? And Economics and Comics is saying, was I nervous at checkout? I wasn't, because I'd been in the shop before, and she just covered price for everything. That's what she does. And so because of that, I was okay with it, At the LCS that I go to now, the guy doesn't care. He knows about all the hype. He knows about all the books. He still sells them all for regular cover price, man. And I love that about him. I'll come in. He's like, bro, what specs are you after this week? And I'm like, okay, I'm looking for this one. He's like, yeah, I have that one. No, that one just sold out. Someone bought like all 10 copies. And he's cool with it. He's like, I just make my money. You guys want to buy the books? You go make your own money by hustling and selling them and putting on eBay and dealing with all that,
That's cool, man.
Yeah, Economics is like, payback. Heck yeah, man. You charge me regular price for this bent, beat up book. So the other question that I have, though, that comes with that, and we'll probably talk about this more in another episode, is how did I feel about selling those books for $75? And there comes another question of ethics. And for me, I just didn't overprice. I figured out, what they're worth right now. And I was okay with going what they're worth. If I was selling them for double of what they're worth, then I'm turning into that LCS guy. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But because that is what they're worth, and Thanos 13 is going to be a hot book for a very long time, especially with Donny Cates, his epic writing and how much people are loving him. I was okay doing that,
Yeah.
But I mean, that's a question that we may want to bring up on this show as well. So that brings me to another point here. The last thing that was going to save me from getting swindled and having that trust in my LCS owner was doing the research. And everybody talked about it earlier. And I don't know why I felt this way. And it's just, when I think about it, it's so dumb of me. Like every time this guy would tell me what a book was worth, I felt bad because of our relationship, like double guessing him or questioning him. Like I felt bad getting on eBay and looking it up. And even then I didn't really know to do that. So I would go on eBay and I would, kind of look the book up and I try to research it on Google because I had no idea like how to look up what a book was worth back then. But I still felt bad because I'm like, this guy's my friend. He talks to me about God. He gives my kids a free ice cream. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like an idiot now thinking like, how did I let this guy swindle me so bad? And so the thing is, everybody was saying it and everybody agrees. You've got to go in and you've got to do your research. And so that's where, today you're going to come up with something you want to share with everybody, which I think is a great way to figure stuff out. And guys in the chat, let us know where you do your most research. If you're at a shop and you're looking at a book and you pull something out and it looks familiar, but you're not sure what it's worth, what are you guys doing? Let us know in the chat. But John, I mean, tell us what I should have done then, man.
So there's tons of resources out there, and I think for our first episode, like we're gonna kind of ease into this really easy. And for some of you guys, this might seem like really basic information, but I think right now, the trend is that even at your LCS, a lot of times the trend is that the going rate is based on what eBay prices are, what things are selling for on eBay.
Yeah.
So, like for instance, let's see what a hot book right now is.
Do you know what? Darth Luxian 88 is asking Avengers 684. Do Avengers 684.
Okay, so I've got my, I don't know if you guys can see that, but I've got my eBay app up. And so I'm just going to type in the search Avengers 684.
Thank Economics. I appreciate that, man.
Okay. So you can see like it's going to pull up all the listings there. And, you know, that's what most of you guys see. And at first, like it actually took me months to figure this out. And even when people would suggest this to me, like I would kind of nod my head, like, because I didn't want to seem stupid, but I honestly didn't know how to do this. So you're going to like pull this up. And I thought my best friend was like, I'm going to click on the sorting, right? And I'm going to sort it lowest price plus shipping. And that's going to get me the best price on this thing. And that's how I'm going to know. So that was my best friend there. But then you come up with stuff like, you know, this one's just started for auction. The first bid is $325. That's obviously not what it's going to go for.
Good price.
But I used to think when I was selling books that like the way that I would determine it, and I think what a lot of people will do is they'll go on here and they'll set their price based on, you know, one of these high priced books that's on there. So there's this one that's right here.
See you later, Bubs. Thanks for stopping by, brother.
Or we got this Avengers. Let's see. Sorry, man. I'm trying to find one that makes sense.
All good, man. Meanwhile, while you're looking that up, Economic says he's enjoying this show. He says, me like. If you want to be on it, brother, you got some great stories that can help the community out, DM me on Instagram, man, or, you know, email me and let's get you on the show, bro. Because we want anybody watching right now. If you've had something like this happen to you, or you've had anything where you think somebody else in the community can benefit from it, come be on the show. We'll make a whole episode based off of what you want to share, and we'll talk all about that. So, but go for it, John.
All right. So when it comes to spec books, man, like especially on eBay, like you're gonna have your people that are gonna put things out for auction. You might be able to get a good deal. You're also gonna have these crazies that are just gonna set their price at something like really exorbitant. So like for a book like Avengers 684, like somebody's gonna set it like this one's right here is for like $99.99, right? Mm-hmm. And that might be a fair price. It might not. One thing that you're gonna hear over and over again is just because that's their asking price doesn't necessarily mean that people are gonna pay for that.
Yeah,
that's not they're paying. And so what you do is up here in the top corner, there's this button here. I don't know if you guys can. Is that focusing for you guys? It's a filter right up here in the top right-hand corner. And so you click on filter, and it shows you all these settings that you know, if you've never done this before, like this is going to blow your mind because you can really customize like how your information comes up.
Yep.
And you can scroll down to where it says sold and completed items. And so if you want to see the items that have already sold, those auctions don't just come up normally. You have to actually click that little button and switch it on. And so now what it's going to do is when you come back to it, it's going to show you what these books are actually selling for. So if like what I just showed you guys, one guy had his raw copy of 684 priced at $99, which some people might look at that and think that's really expensive. Some people might, like, if you're not knowledgeable, you might look at that and think like, wow, that's a really great price. But you can look on here and it'll tell you the last book that sold, which was a raw copy, and it'll tell you when that sold. So that sold just today, March the 5th.
Near Mint Plus?
For $55 for Near Mint Plus, yeah. And so if you didn't have that information, you might have paid that $99 thinking that that was a good price because you didn't want to, I don't know, maybe you had the fever and you needed that instant satisfaction, right? Like the instant gratification. You didn't want to wait for an auction and you thought you were going to hit that buy now price, only to find out, man, you're paying like
$45
more than what it's going for.
Yeah.
So that's your best friend right there, man, is the sold item setting. Because not only is this going to tell you if the prices on eBay are fair prices, because you just never know who's on the other side of that computer. It's also when you're dealing with other people, if you're at your LCS and you know, they have a book up on the shelf and they're asking a certain price, you know, occasionally those books were priced, you know, who knows, maybe months ago, and they haven't changed the price on it.
Yeah,
you got to know that, like, the comic book market is volatile, man. And so if 3 weeks ago the book was worth, you know, $100 and today it's only worth $20, the only way you're going to know that is if you look it up on eBay and see what it sold for yesterday and not what it sold for 3 months ago.
Right.
You know, and
right.
So don't be afraid to pull this out at your comic shop, because I guarantee you when they're selling books to you or when you're trying to sell books to them, they're going to pull it out, and that's their tool that they're going to use. And a lot of comic shops use this eBay sold prices to kind of gauge what things are going for.
Okay, this makes me as happy as can be, bro. Russ, RLM Comics and Collectibles. He's my friend. We've been following each other for a long while, and he just moved from the Funko Pop collecting into comics recently. You know, or not that he just barely did it, but he moved his focus on his channel to that. And he just said, "That's really cool. I didn't realize you could do that." That's the exact reason why I wanted to do this show. Russ, we wanted you to know that, man. Because every time you get on and you're going to buy a book, and I know sometimes he'll even message me and say, "Hey, is this a good price for this?" Or he'll throw it on Instagram. Guys, what do you think? It's the perfect week. Because after you've asked me those questions, Russ, I've jumped on eBay, went through the sold listing and said, "Yeah, Russ, this is the most I'd pay for that book." And then I see you get the book at a good price, or it goes too high above that and you actually dodge a bullet. So I love the fact that it helped Russ out doing that, man. And that's our tip of the week, right, John?
Tip of the week, man.
Every time we do this show, we're going to have a tip of the week. And that is our very first tip of the week, the eBay sold listings. And so I didn't know that back then. I didn't know how to figure out what a Star Wars 1 was worth. I didn't know that there's a huge difference in price between a 10.0 and there's a huge difference in price between a 9.4. Like, if he truly had, this LCS owner, a 10.0 Star Wars 1, is he going to sell that to me for $475? No, sir, because there's not one on the census list, right? Like, I would have had a expensive book, and all these things, I just missed them, man. They just flew over my head because I had that fever. I was so excited about this guy that I trusted telling me that he had a 10.0, that I took a 10 and a 9.8, and I spent $950 on him, man. And so, I mean, I got swindled. If I hadn't have had my focus that night, if I had known what I was looking for, if I had realized, hey, Star Wars is coming out right now with The Force Awakens, and that book's going to be super hot. It's been around since the 70s, and it goes up and down. This is not the time to buy Star Wars 1. That book's going to be a little bit more pricey, and let me see what it sold for on eBay. Let's see. This guy, okay, that's definitely not a 10. It's not a 9.8. This looks like a 9.4 to me, which I'd be able to do now a little bit better. And then I go to eBay sold listing and say, okay, a 9.4 is going for $125 slabbed, and this is still raw. I'll pay $100 for it, bro. Instead, I gave $407 away for each book. And so, I mean, this is why we wanted to do this show tonight, guys, because if any of you out there are brand new in the hobby, or if you're in the chat and you are an expert, us amateurs need that information from you. And anything that we suffered through, we want to share it with you guys so you don't have to suffer through it either.
And as a child of the 80s, I feel like I have to do this. So, and now you know, and knowing is half the battle.
Yeah, baby. Yes, sir. G.I. John, man. I love it, dude. Too awesome, brother. Too awesome.
So, yeah, and you can go back really far on it too, like at least a few months, and check trends. And that's what these top 10 list guys, like, that's a lot of the information that they're looking at too. And it's not a secret. I used to think when I went into my LCS, like when I tried to sell books back to them and they're typing on their computer, I thought it was like some sort of industry software that they had that told them what things were worth, or it was like an Overstreet program or something like that. And it wasn't, man. They were just looking it up on eBay. And but they wouldn't share with me how they were looking at those prices, or they would in passing, but they wouldn't actually like show me the steps to do it. Yeah. Once I found that out, man, I felt like I had the keys to the kingdom. Like it changes everything for you.
Yeah, man, it's totally true. And that knowledge is half the battle for real. And I mean, people in the chat are saying it, knowledge is power, and we've got to share that power. And so that's what we want to do with this show. And there's all kinds of stuff that we want to talk about. I mean, we're even talking about Pops. Economics and Comics is saying he loves himself some Pops, man. That's stuff we want to talk about too. And I'm definitely going to do that with Pop Mike. So Popcom Mike, we're going to talk about those things. But there's so many lessons for us to learn. And I know I've already said this before, but anybody watching, you have something you went through. Thorough Cuboro said he wanted to talk to us about how his Iron Man #1 got stolen. Definitely a whole bunch of lessons we can learn from that. I heard that story on his first live show he was on with Big Lion Cat, and he was talking about it, and my heart ached for him, man. I was like, shoot. So I know economics and comics got plenty of DK saying economics has a tip I want to hear. So if you guys have stuff, JP, Gray Man, anybody in here at Kachung, you guys share. And Kachung said something important too. Make sure you get the right copy of Star Wars 1, because there are those reprints. There are the Comic Presents ones. You know, they're all the different copies, and you got to make sure you get the right one. So
that's another show just in and of itself, man. That Star Wars book is tricky.
For sure. I mean, any book. There's so many different copies of books. Like even, I mean, and this guy, guys, this LCS owner, he is going to be the gift that keeps on giving, because I did so many wrong things here, and this is just a little part of it. And we'll get into the classic X-Men copies versus the regular X-Men copies later, when I think I'm getting all of the Dark Phoenix stories when I'm really just getting the reprints, you know? So so much stuff to go over, so much stuff to talk about. John, anything else you want to say before we wrap this up?
Yeah, man, just make sure that you know, if you want to, I'm not pressuring anybody, but if you want to, you know, make sure you're following both of us on Instagram. And if you feel like it, you can subscribe to my page as well. And both Matt and I, like, we discuss this stuff all the time. Like, it's fun for us to kind of exchange these war stories, so to speak. But we know that a lot of you guys out there have these experiences too. And so if you're friends with me on Instagram and you want to reach out and volunteer to be a guest on one of our future shows, we would love to have you guys, because even though, like, I feel like Matt and I could probably talk for hours about this stuff just because of all the experiences that we've had. We want to make this very inclusive, so that you guys can share your stories too, because it's not fun if we don't have the participation of the community, man. And so, you know, both Matt and I are from Texas, so I think our stories are a little similar. But I'd love to hear, like, how the comic scenes are different in other parts of the country where you guys are from too. So,
you know, speaking of that, bro, Geeky GMT, do you know him?
I've seen him in the chats.
Okay, cool. So he's from Sweden, and he messaged me because he wants to get on and kind of share some of the things he's learned about buying comics outside of the United States. So, I mean, that's going to be a show that we're going to put together, and he's just going to educate us. You know what I'm saying?
Nice.
So, and that goes exactly to your point there. And something else. Go ahead. Go ahead, man.
Too, man, is that I think, like, the whole title of the show, the Amateur Hour, like, you've been collecting for longer than I have. Like I said, I've only been doing it for a year. But even if I was doing it for 10 years, there's always new stuff that you can learn about. We can all learn from each other. And you know, both you and I are not we're not like the end all be all of comic collecting. We don't have all the answers. We don't have all the experience. So it's important that we have y'all's participation. I mean, you guys have already brought stuff up in the chat that we didn't know about.
Yep.
So don't be afraid to reach out, man.
Tell them, give them the way to get a hold of you, man.
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram, Sasquatch210 on Instagram, or you can just email me at comicbooksasquatch@gmail.com if you don't want to add me on Instagram, or if you don't have an Instagram, and we can definitely set that up.
Yeah, man. And I'm gonna add it. I didn't do it earlier, and I should have. I did put your YouTube page so people could sub you, but I'm gonna go copy and paste your Instagram information in the description of this video, so anybody wants to go find you, they can. My stuff's in there too, guys. So if you want to get a hold of me on Instagram, TheBoyWhoHad7 talks comic books, and also TheBoyWho7 sells comic books, you can do that. Didn't mean to cut you off there, but I wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah, definitely. Because again, like, this is all like, I think for both Matt and I, like, this is our way of not only sharing with the community, but also getting to know you guys better. And it'd be great if, you know, every week it's not just us two talking to each other. You know, even though I love talking to Matt, it would be great to have a new guest every week. And so, you know, you guys volunteer for that, and you know, even if you don't feel like you're you're photogenic or whatever. Like Issues has already showed us you can wear panda mask if you want. I mean, it's
right. Right. So I want to point out a couple things. My boy Joker 68 just showed up. Hey brother, how are you doing? And my girl, comic girl Ava, just showed up as well. What's up, Ava? Hope you're doing well. Really, guys, John hit it on the head. Him and I literally planned this out in the last 2 weeks, and we've probably talked on the phone for like 3 or 4 hours, maybe even a little bit more than that. And we just enjoyed talking with each other, getting to know each other, becoming friends. And so we want you guys to be a part of this show too. And that's how this community grows. And not only will we be able to, get to know each other personally, but we'll help the community to continue to grow. We'll support each other, and we'll learn together. And that's like the best part of YouTube for me now. It used to be when I first started, my focus was, I can't wait to get 1,000 subscribers and get famous. And I'll admit it, those thoughts were in my brain, and now it's just like, man, all the friends that I have now, John is my friend. And if I ever visit San Antonio, I'm hanging out with him. You know what I'm saying? So it's just so cool to be able to do this. And we want you guys to be a huge part of this show. So really quick, I got to say, Kachung, we love you too, brother. He just said, guys, I love you guys. Fuchsia, she says, I love this. We appreciate you guys all stopping in and being here. Werewolf, by lunchtime, go have fun howling at the moon. I know it's late over there. And same with the gray man. He says, watch out for the moon. So, and the friendships are the best, Ava. That's the best part. I just love that I get to know people. I love seeing people like DK Comics and Cosplay and Kachung, just starting their channel off recently and getting bigger and having more videos come out, and seeing their haul video that I just watched like a week ago or a couple days ago, maybe. It's just cool to support everybody. So we appreciate you guys all stopping in here tonight. We really do.
For sure, man. I know that I was telling Matt, like, one of the reasons that that I was drawn to this online community is because here in San Antonio, I honestly don't have a lot of friends that collect, and I think that's why we're all drawn to each other. Is that like my Instagram account? Like, I keep that separate from my personal social media account because, man, my family, my friends, like, they don't want to hear about all my comic book stuff that I post. And it's not that I'm not embarrassed about it at all, but I feel like because I post so much about it, I'm so like fanatical about it, and I post on a daily basis, they would probably get really sick of it like really fast. And so I keep that separate. And so when I can meet somebody like Matt, even though we're not in the same city, we don't get to hang out and go to the comic shop together. We talk on the phone. Like, we talked on the phone the other day for at least a few hours, man.
Yeah. And
it's really great. And for a lot of you guys that are just getting into this online community, I think I've heard conversations before where like it's really you come into it kind of skeptical, not feeling like these relationships are real because of that screen separation. And you think, my first thought is, was like, how real are these friendships? Like, these people that are living, miles and miles away, like, I'm never going to meet them in real life. But if you let that barrier down, we talk about that issue of trust. Like, you let that barrier down, and you allow yourself to make connections with people. It's really rewarding, man. And this whole, it kind of renewed my interest in this technology that I didn't fully understand. That's allowed me to connect with guys like Matt that I otherwise never would have met, and I'm glad that I did. So you guys get in on it, man, because it's a lot of fun.
Heck yeah, man. Heck yeah. Everybody's talking about how they love the same thing and they feel the same way. And like the bass cow, or the bass cow, I guess. He's a guy that I met. I think there was some political discussion like a year ago, and people were fighting, and I was like, hey, let's just calm it down. And I was just, hey, let's not fight. And this guy had the same thoughts as I did, and we hit it off, and we've been friends for a year on Instagram, and now he's showing up today watching the YouTube video. It's just cool, man. It's just so cool how these things have connected us. But I think we should wrap it up there, brother. What do you think?
I think so too, man. I think we went a little longer than we were expecting, but it's been a great conversation, man. I've had a lot of fun tonight.
Yeah, guys, thank you everybody for being here. I got to say, Darth Lucian, he got like a Hulk 181 by accident sent to him. He sent it back. We need more people like that. You know, we need more people that are honest, that are good human beings, that just love the hobby and that just love other human beings, man. And even if they don't like issues, he always says he's not a fan of other human beings, but he's still a good guy. So Rag 718, Russ, the Boss Cow, everybody else that's in here, Economic and Comics, Joker 68, a Soldier, Comic Girl Ava, everybody, thank you so much for coming. We absolutely appreciate your support tonight. We had anywhere between 30 and 45 people watching, and that means a lot to us. Rag718 is saying there is an eBay coupon on eBay, so make sure you go use that. Thank you. There's another tip of the day. But just for all of you, just remember our tip of the day was to make sure you use the eBay sold listing. And we're going to be doing this show every 2 weeks. And if it gets a little bit more popular and we need to do it weekly, we will. But for now, we will keep you guys posted on the next one. We don't know exactly when yet because I'm going out of town. But we'll hit you up on Instagram. We'll let you know on YouTube. But everybody, thank you so much again for being here. We really appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks so much, guys. Like, we actually had quite a few people in the chat tonight. And again, man, this isn't fun unless we have y'all's participation. And like I said, I had a great time talking to you guys tonight. And I'm never going to judge you guys for the way that you collect. I'm never going to try and tell you what to do. I'm only sharing my experiences in the hopes that you can learn from them. But man, I'm telling you, if you go to the shop tomorrow and you're a little worried that, you know, your fever might be just a little bit too high, then just remember my mantra, man. If you don't read it, you don't need it, or not, man. If maybe it's not a problem for you, but that's what I'll be telling myself tomorrow, because there's gonna be a lot of great books coming out tomorrow. So you kind of have to know your limits. So
there you go, man.
Yeah, I think we should wrap it up, man. I think we're done.
Okay, brother. Well, guys, we appreciate it. Thank you so much. We'll talk to y'all later, and mischief managed.